And yet the government has just destroyed my business.
Today, Rishi Sunak announced a package of measures to support businesses and employees that will be some comfort for local politicians, but their priority remains getting Coventry back to Tier 1.
We certainly will continue as a council to work with all organisations, whether it be schools, universities or businesses, and individual households to ensure that we can move in that direction.
From suppliers to those who make their money on the high street, coronavirus has been relentless. They will hope that fresh support announced today will be enough to see them through the winter, providing some light at the end of this long tunnel. Daniel Skip, ITV News.
Well, in Stoke-on-Trent, the City Council applied to the Health Secretary for the city to be moved up a tier following a sharp increase in coronavirus cases over the last 5 days. In a moment, we'll hear from the council, but first, here was today's reaction in the city.
I don't see the point of a lockdown, because if we were going to go on a lockdown, we should have it nationally where everybody does it and everything does generally be closed.
If it's going to reduce the number of people getting the coronavirus, then that's a good thing.
With so many students and new people coming in with freshers, I think it's the best move to do.
Well, I think we're very concerned, and certainly we've been watching it very, very carefully. We were an area of concern some weeks ago, and we've been watching very carefully on a day-to-day basis what our figures were doing. Fortunately, we've seen a rise day on day on day over the last week, and that's why it's appropriate now for us to go into Tier 2.
Now, this time last year saw the start of a wet and miserable winter, which led to widespread flooding. Around £8 million of repairs have been carried out across the Midlands since then. But this year, we're also facing the additional challenge of a global pandemic. Our environment correspondent, Charlotte Cross, has been looking at how the government, businesses and councils are preparing for the months ahead.
Opening a business in Ironbridge had been a lifelong dream for Mike Perks and his wife Gail. And last year it came true with the launch of Cleo's Cocktail Bar. But then the flooding came.
We just couldn't even come into the building at one point. We weren't allowed to, you know. So it completely devastated the trade.
They remained closed for weeks, and just as businesses began to recover and open up, they were forced to close again as coronavirus took hold.
We're holding on by our fingernails. And there's a lot of premises down the whole street that are doing exactly the same. We've put ourselves in a position where we can probably hold ourselves going until probably the end of February. But after that, it's something we've got to look at and say, well, do we just take everything out and sell it or move on?
As well as being devastating, the floods across the Midlands were record-breaking. The water here in Ironbridge came dangerously close to overtopping the town's defences.
As the flood levels came up, this side of the road was completely underwater. The flood defences had been put up along the middle to help protect the buildings on the other side, and it caused major damage to the wall here as well. This is one of dozens of repair projects which have been taking place across the Midlands in recent months.
In fact, a total of £8 million has been spent by the Environment Agency fixing flood barriers and flood mitigation schemes across the West Midlands after the battering they took last year.